Victor Gao, Vice President at the Center for China and Globalization, says Pence's speech amounted to a 40-minute attack on China at a time when more diplomacy is needed.
I personally find Vice President Pence's speech very alarming. His speech sounds like a declaration of hostility or antagonism against China, and this is exactly not wanted between China and the United States. After all, the United States and China are the two largest economies in the world. If we cannot get along with each other, the world itself will not be at peace, and the United States and China will both suffer. Therefore, we do not want to have this kind of hostility between China and the United States. We want to have a more healthy and more constructive relations between Washington and Beijing. And both China and the United States need to make an effort to make sure that the bilateral relations do not get out of control and will be put back onto the normal course of development.
Will there be any conversation at this point between China and the United States to address some of these allegations, like election meddling, Victor? Did the Vice President issue any kind of evidence?
First of all, I think many of these allegations are one-sided and not substantiated. For example, the so-called Chinese intervention in the midterm election. Come on, I don't think China has any desire or any intention or capability of interfering in the domestic elections in the United States. And if the United States can come up with real evidence to be substantiated in due process, for example, then demonstrate to the whole world. Let the whole world believe that the United States is serious about such allegations. Otherwise, the United States will have its own reputation and credibility being tattered. And therefore, I think let's be focused on more serious business. Let's make sure that China and the United States are not becoming enemies against each other. We become more and more as normal partners with each other. Let's get along. Let's not deteriorate into a rivalry against each other, because that's not good for Washington, and that's not good for China, and that's not good for the rest of the world.
Victor, what do you make of the timing? I mean, of midterm elections in the United States are just a few weeks away.
I think Vice President Pence's speech is very much geared towards its domestic audience, and the purpose is to really incite the voters in such a way that they will vote more for the Republicans. And there is real desire to win both the House of Representatives as well as the Senate, because I think there is fear among the top Republicans that if they lose either the House or the Senate, probably President Donald Trump will be impeached. And therefore, they are kind of inciting this kind of hostility or hate against China and bashing China on all fronts. But I don't think this is all justified. And eventually, if situations are really getting out of control between our two great nations, the Chinese people will suffer, the American people will suffer. We have a better way to promote the bilateral relations between our two countries. And let's do the right thing, not do the wrong thing at this particular moment.
And quickly, Victor, can you tell us how this will affect the relationship between the two countries, already inflamed by a current trade war?
Of course, I don't think Vice President Pence's speech will be helpful to the China-US relations at this particular moment. Our two countries are right now engaged in probably the largest trade war ever in human history. And we do not need any more sensational stories like this. I think both leadership need to exercise extreme wisdom and prudence in handling our bilateral relations properly, rather than affording to let it slip out of control. And the frictions between our two countries are not only restricted to trade area, but now it's more and more spilling over into military areas. both China and the United States are nuclear-armed countries. We need to be very careful about our bilateral relations because if it is not handled properly, it may become disaster for our two countries, and world peace and development may suffer as a consequence.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Victor Gao in Beijing, thank you.